Hello guys, in today's topic we are going to discuss types of planning in the economic planning chapter, which is again an important topic in our Indian economy. So in this particular types of planning, first we have to look into this diagram. So this is how actually the types of planning in Indian point of view or in the economic system itself, how the types of planning looks. So if you look at here, I have divided these types of planning into four important groups. In the first group, democratic versus totalitarian, which again in a shorter line we can conclude this into centralized versus decentralized planning. Second one, planning by direction and inducement. In one way we can conclude this into indicative versus imperative planning, which is very important as part of the Indian planning. And the third one is short term, medium and long term planning, and again financial versus physical planning. In Indian point of view, this is a very important topic. And the last one is functional versus structural and comprehensive versus partial. Out of these 8 types of plannings, which is actually a 4, but these are the subtopics of each and every topic. In Indian economy point of view, the some important topics that we have to remember and study and revise are these. One is indicative versus imperative. Second one is centralized versus decentralized. Third one is democratic versus totalitarian. Fourth one is short term, medium term and long term. And rest of the types of planning, even though that we discuss in the class, they are not actually important in the examination point of view. So without wasting the time, let us start the first one. Totalitarian planning. What exactly totalitarian planning? The name itself is suggesting you what exactly the nature of this totalitarian planning itself. Totalitarian planning is generally followed in countries like command economies. Command economies in the sense, the economies which follow a complete socialism or the economies which follow communism. You can say in the early years of 1900s, Soviet Union had followed this type of totalitarian planning. In one way you can say China has also followed in the earlier years this totalitarian planning. If you look at the objectives of this particular planning or features of this totalitarian planning, the central control and direction of all economic activity. So here you must understand the keywords of this particular thing. What exactly meant by economic activity? Economic activity in the sense, any activity which you are doing and which is related to money is called economic activity. Example, let's say you are working in one company, you are getting salary for that, that is an economic activity. And you are making a film, for that you also get money, that is an economic activity. Your mother is washing clothes and cooking food for you, for that you are not giving salary, so that is not an economic activity. Any activity which is related to money or monetary terms is called as economic activity. Generally, on a broader line, if you want to understand this economic activity, it is nothing but means of production. So this means of production, it could be anything. It might be in agriculture sector or it might be industrial sector or anything. Whatever you are producing, everything is part of economic activity if it is related to money. So in this totalitarian planning, this particular economic activity, it is controlled by the center. Center in the sense, the central government in Indian context. If you go to the other nations also, you will find union government the way you're finding in India, you will find the union government in other countries also. So if that particular central government is controlling all the economic activity in the economy, that is called as totalitarian plan. So if you go a bit deeper into the subject, the consumption, how the people actually buying the goods, production, how actually the companies and industries are producing different goods and services, exchanging with money, and distribution, they are all controlled by state. State here refers to government. So planning authority, it is the supreme body for the planning itself. Planning authority is the supreme body in the sense, on behalf of the government, we will be having a planning body. In India, till 2014, from 1950 onwards, the planning body in India, it was Planning Commission. But today the planning body now, the planning commission is replaced by Niti Aayog. Similarly, in other countries also, there are different types of planning bodies which function on behalf of the government. That particular planning body, that is the supreme body for the planning itself. So the complete planning, it will be under the control of this planning authority. This planning authority decides what is the target for the economy, how much GDP that an economy must grow with, or what are the different types of schemes that must be implemented in the economy. Again, it is decided by the planning authority. How much allocations that we must make to the sector, to education sector, how much money we should allocate, to health sector, how much money we should allocate, to aviation sector, how much money we should allocate. Everything is decided by this planning authority itself. And what are the different types of methods we must utilize to bring the standard of living in the society, that is also decided by the planning authority. And the procedures of implementation. See, for example, you can bring the development in any nation with different procedures. For example, United States of America, it chose capitalist mode of economy. It gave more importance to the private sector. In China, in the initial years of their independence, they gave more importance to the public sector. In Soviet Union, they gave more importance to the public sector. In India, we gave a blend of importance we have given to the public and as well as the private sector under the concept of mixed economy. So what type of implementation procedures you follow, that actually changes from country to country. But here, whichever country is following this totalitarian planning, the supreme body, the planning authority itself, that is the one which determines what type of procedures of implementation that they must use. And it is absolutely no opposition to the plan. People will not be having a choice to oppose the plan. Whatever the plan that has been submitted by this planning authority on behalf of the government must be approved by all the people, whether they like it or they don't like it. They have to follow it. If they don't follow it, the government will take stringent actions against them. So people, they have no option other than accepting it, and rigidly they must implement the plan. If they say, I don't like the plan, it doesn't matter whether you like the plan, whether you don't like the plan. It has to be implemented the way it is proposed by the planning authority. So in one way you can say this is a strict way of planning, a rigid way of planning. Generally it is followed in countries like socialist and communist countries. In today's world, there is no pure socialist country, there is no pure communist country. But the smell of this totalitarian planning is definitely felt in countries like Russia, Cuba and China. You can definitely find this. So the next one is democratic planning. So what exactly meant by this democratic planning? Generally, the name itself is suggesting to you. Democratic planning is generally followed in countries which are follower of democracy. So countries like United States of America, countries like Japan, countries like India, countries like UK, n number of examples you can take from this world. So if you look there, the philosophy of the democratic government is ideological basis. So democracy always means people's participation. So the people has to accept the plan. And the implementation also, the people has to be the part of the plan. Without people's approval, you cannot implement the plan. You won't bring the plan also. The people-centric plans is generally called as democratic planning. And the cooperation of different agencies. What exactly different agencies means? Not only government. Government is one agency. Private sector is one agency. Civil society is one agency. People as a whole is one agency. So everything, political parties, you take anything, they all must be part of the cooperation while comes to implementing of this plan. So when comes to implementing of this plan. So democratic planning, it respects private property. So what is meant by this respecting private property? Generally, if you go to communist countries or socialist countries, communist and socialist countries, they're completely different. I can give you one good example by differentiating what exactly communism and socialism and capitalist countries actually they change. I'll give you a very good example. You take this, there are two people in a capitalist country, there are two people in a communist country, two same people. Again, there are two people in a socialist country. So how socialism, communism, capitalism differs? From this example you can easily remember. For example, in a capitalist country, one person owns 2 cows. So the government will never say anything. This person is having 2 cows, this person is having 0 cows. So this person, when he is having 2 cows and when this person is having 0 cows, he is bit poor when compared to this person. So the government won't put its hand in between these 2 people. Because he is having 2 cows, government will not say anything. You give 1 cow to him, like that, the government will never say anything. The government respects the private property. So this is called private property. It belongs to him, that's it. If this person wants any cow, he has to earn it. So that is part of capitalist system. If you come to communism, communism says this. This person has 2 cows. The government will take these 2 cows. So the government will hand over these 2 cows. This person has to hand over these 2 cows. The government will give milk to this person and this person equally. So private property doesn't belong to person. Private property belongs to government. Only the fruits of private property will be shared among the people equally. So this is communism. Then what about socialism? Again, this person has 2 cows. Socialism says give 1 cow to this person. So this person will be having 1 cow and this person will be having 1 cow. So socialism always tries to bring equality by also respecting the private property. But if when it comes to communism, what it is doing? It is taking away all the private property from you and it is sharing the milk between these 2 people. So this is called capitalism. Capitalism where you can do whatever you want, whatever the property that belongs to you, it belongs to you. The government won't put its finger. When it comes to socialism, the government asks this person to share this cow with this person. When it comes to socialism, what exactly socialism says? The government asked this person to share this cow with this person so that inequality will be reduced. But when it comes to communism, they took away all the property. So this particular type of democratic planning is generally followed in the countries which follow the democracy. So that might be a capitalist country or that might be another different country. So democratic planning respects private property. Most of the democracies actually they are there in the capitalist countries or mixed economies. So price mechanism is allowed to play its due role. In communist or socialist countries, market forces in the sense demand and supply. So this demand and supply actually, these market forces, they'll never allowed to play its due role. A price of a particular good in socialist and communist economies is determined by the government. But whereas in the capitalist countries, the particular price of a good is actually determined by demand and supply of that good. So in this particular democratic planning, the price mechanism is allowed to play its due role, which means demand and supply will play its role. The private sector also coexists with the public sector. This is where actually we call ourselves as a mixed economy. We know that very well. That is called mixed economy. And what is the aim of it? Removing of inequalities. So how you remove the inequalities? By giving every person an opportunity to grow. So thereby you can remove the inequalities. And also individual freedom prevails. You can do whatever you want within the limits of the law. So this is part of democratic planning. In another manner, we can also understand this totalitarian versus democratic planning, that is decentralized versus centralized. Centralized planning in the sense, the union government will make the plan and the states and the local governments, they follow this plan. So plan comes from top and the implementation will happen bottom. That is called top-down approach, which is nothing but centralized planning. Decentralized planning in the sense bottom to top. Local self-government, they make one plan. Like in India, panchayats will make the plan. All these plannings combinedly, they go to the block level. All the block levels will send the plan to the district level. All the district level plans will send to the state level. All the states will send the plan to the central level. So from bottom, it will go to the top. So bottom to top approach. It is nothing but decentralized planning. In India, till the planning commission was alive, we followed the centralized planning, that is top down approach. Today actually we are not exactly following the planning because Niti Aayog is not settled now. So we will have to wait and watch what type of planning we are actually going to follow. So this is your totalitarian versus democratic. Next one is financial planning. Financial planning is a very easy one. First of all, financial planning in the sense, the government will identify how much resources it is having. Example, let's say government is having 100 crores. Within that 100 crores, how much development I can do? So first they get the finances and how much money you are having. Accordingly, you will bring the development. With this 100 crores, how much development I can do? This is called financial planning. Physical planning in the sense, how much development I have to do. So first you put the goal, then accordingly you get the resources. I'll tell you a beautiful example for this. Let's say government wants to construct a road. In financial planning, what it will do? I have only 100 crores in my pocket. With this 100 crores, how many kilometers of road I can lay down? Like for example, with this 100 crores, the government can lay down only 100 kilometers of road. So the government will settle this with this goal. First they'll get the finances, how much money you have in your pocket, accordingly the development will do. Accordingly the development will happen. But when it comes to the physical planning, let's say the government will think 1000 kilometers of road has to be laid down. For 1000 kilometers of road to be laid down, how much money it is required? Let's say 500 crores it need. So the government will get this 500 crores by hook or crook. If for example government is having only 300 crores, rest of 200 crores government will take a loan from a bank or from RBI, whatever it is. So first in the financial planning, it secure a balance between demands and supply. It avoid inflation and it brings economic stability. In the sense, resources are allocated first. How much money the government is having, first it is allocated, and after that how much development we can do. So if you do that, it will bring a balance between the demand and supply and it won't increase the inflation because you are not spending any extra money. But when it comes to the physical planning, first of all, overall assessment of the available resources such as raw materials, manpower, etc. First we fix a target. What is the target? Accordingly we bring the money. But here we fix the money first. Accordingly we take the targets. So in physical planning, targets come first, money comes next. In the financial planning, money comes first, target comes next. So this is the difference between financial planning versus physical planning. And the next one here, functional planning versus structural planning. First look at the functional planning. It refers to the planning which seeks to remove economic difficulties by directing all the planning activities within the existing social structure. First you need to understand what is meant by structure. What is meant by structure of the economy? Whenever you confront with this word called structure of the economy, always you have to remember this. You have to differentiate the economy with different sectors. How much primary sector is contributing to the economy? How much secondary sector is contributing to the economy? How much tertiary sector is contributing to the economy? If you apply the same concept in India, tertiary sector, that is your service sector, it is contributing more than 60% of GDP. Whereas the primary sector like agriculture sector, it is contributing only 14 to 18% of GDP. Rest of around 26% of GDP it is coming from the secondary sector. So in one way, tertiary sector is more in India, secondary sector is second in India, primary sector is third in India. So without changing this structure, within already the existing framework of the economy, you bring the economic activities and your agenda. Like you do the planning within the existing structure of the economy. You don't change the structure. Like if this is the structure of the economy, within this structure what you can do? Within this structure what to do? That is called functional planning. But here in structural planning, you change the structure itself. Like this is the structure. You change the structure to another way. Generally, structural planning is followed in countries where there is a huge underdevelopment. Like you can find this structural planning in the countries like African countries. So structural planning in the sense you change the structure first. After that you think of development. But in the functional planning, within the existing structure of the economy, within that existing structure itself, you do the things. You bring the economic activities, or you bring the reforms, or you bring the different policies, whatever it is, within the existing structure of the framework. Like United States of America, what is the structure of United States of America? Capitalist economy. So within this capitalist economy only, you simply do whatever you want to do. But whereas when it comes to the other countries like underdeveloped countries, you change the structure. You can change from capitalist to socialist, socialist to communist. After that you will think of what exactly to be done in the economies. So this is called functional versus structural planning. So on the next one, the most important one actually in the planning, because in the 5-year plans itself, we are going to discuss about this even afterwards also, but it came very early. We have something called 5-year plans in our country. Almost all from 1951 to 2017, we have implemented 12 5-year plans in our country. In the 7th 5-year plan, or after 7th 5-year plan, by the time we started 8th 5-year plan, we brought something called indicative planning. So indicative planning in India, it started from 8th 5-year plan onwards. Whereas imperative planning in India, it started from the it started from the first 5-year plan and it continued till 7th 5-year plan. So the first 7 5-year plans we followed imperative planning, and the 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, these 5-year plans we followed the indicative planning. So what exactly is the difference between this? You remembered just now earlier I have explained you totalitarian versus democratic planning. So it is bit similar to that concept. So let us explore it. First, what exactly meant by imperative planning? Imperative planning is nothing but centralized planning, as I told you. So what is meant by centralized planning? In India, planning commission will be there. It will do the whatever the planning that is required in the country. So this planning commission will send its plans to the states. The state governments will implement the plan. So it is nothing but a top-down planning, isn't it so? It is nothing but what? It is a top-down planning. The central government, on behalf of the central government, the planning commission will do the planning, like 5-year plans. These 5-year plans are implemented by the states. In the states itself, the implementation happen. So it is like a centralized planning. The center will make the plan, the states will implement the plan. So it is like a top-down approach. That is imperative. You look at the first point here, economic decisions. Economic decisions are made through the centralized planning authority. What is meant by centralized planning authority? Planning commission. On behalf of the government, who is the centralized planning authority? Planning commission and National Development Council. Till 2014, today it is Niti Aayog. And the second one, the decisions related to pertaining to allocation of scarce resources, distribution of resources, production methods are taken by the government in accordance with the predetermined targets and goals. So what exactly these predetermined targets and goals? Let us try to understand this. For example, in the 8th 5-year plan, the government will put some target, like the GDP has to be increased by 8%. Or in 12th 5-year plan, the government thought that the GDP has to be increased by 10%. So these are the predetermined targets. Predetermined targets, they generally go with the sectors, like GDP has to be increased by this much of percent, agriculture growth should be increased by 4%, industrial growth should be increased by 10%, whatever the example you want to take. So these are the predetermined targets. So these predetermined targets are set accordingly. To reach these targets and goals, the government will allocate the money. For example, if you look at the budget of India before 2014, how the budget used to be like? We used to have something called plan expenditure and non-plan expenditure. What is meant by plan expenditure? Plan expenditure in the sense, the money that government spent under the 5-year plans is called plan expenditure. Now, this particular terminology doesn't exist today. After 2017, this terminology was taken out. Why? Because the planning commission itself was discontinued. So there is no need of this terminology. But earlier to 2014, before 2014, this type of terminology existed. For the 5-year plans, the government used it to allocate lakhs of crores of rupees. That is called plan expenditure. The expenditure that the government is spending under the 5-year plans is called plan expenditure. So the government will put the targets, the government will put the goals. To reach these predetermined targets and goals, the government will allocate the resources, distribute the resources, and also bring what are the different production methods that the government must use or that the economy must use. These are all be dealt by the planning commission itself. So this particular imperative planning, it is very rigid, like we saw in the totalitarian plan, right? So the government will put a plan and everybody has to approve it and everybody has to implement it. So it was bit more or less rigid like that. So it is a tight control by the government under rigid rules. All the state governments must approve the plan. All the state governments must implement the plan. If they don't implement it, then effective action would be taken against them. So tight control by the government and rigid rules and regulations, they are all features of this planning. The market forces, which I already told you, demand and supply, they play a very important role generally. But in this imperative planning, they never play a role. They have a very limited role. Like before 2014, during 2009, 2007, those times, petrol rates are determined by the government. But today, every day petrol rate is changing. Why? Because today the petrol rate is determined by the market forces. Demand and supply. If the demand is increasing, then the price will increase. If the supply is decreasing, again the price will increase. So that is how it actually happens. But earlier to that, the petrol, the diesel, the kerosene, some other goods, their prices, they are determined by the government, like administrative prices. So demand and supply, they play a very limited role in imperative planning. So this planning model, that is imperative planning, we adopted from first 5-year plan to 7th 5-year plan. Unfortunately, first to 7th 5-year plan, India never made a good growth rates, right? India never made a good growth rates. So by the time we reached 1990, there was a need for Indian economic reforms. Generally, we call them as LPG reforms. Once the LPG reforms were introduced, we adopted to or we shifted to indicative planning. Indicative planning is completely opposite to this. Like here, there won't be any rigid rules. Indicative planning is mostly found in capitalist and mixed economies. Even though India was a mixed economy, we never behaved like a mixed economy till 1990. Only after 1990 LPG reforms, India started behaving like a real mixed economy. So today we are slanting even towards more to capitalist principles. In the second point, if you see, it refers to a planning where state, instead of providing commandments, so state won't command anyone, but it will facilitate. So there is a difference. What is the difference between a regulator and facilitator? Regulator do only two things, either stop or start, right? But facilitator means it will create an environment where everybody can function, everybody can work. So here in this particular indicative planning, the state will never give you the commandments, but instead of the commandments, the state will create an environment, a working environment where everybody can do their economic activities. It is like facilitating the working of market by providing strong institutions. Now government won't take anything from you. A strong private properties will be there. A strong rights will be there. You can start your own company. The government won't put any restriction on you. Private sector is allowed. Foreign direct investment is allowed. Any private sector company, they can start the business in India. So these are all the rules we adopted only after 1990. Before 1990, before LPG reforms, India never gave the favoritism to private sector. Have you ever found KFC or McDonald's before 1990? They existed before 1990 also. But only after LPG reforms, like we found the Nike shoes, Coca-Cola, McDonald's, KFC, everything we found all of these at what time? After 1991. So before 1990 when we knew only BPL TV. But after 1991 we have different types of products that are available in the market. How? Because we followed imperative planning, which is nothing but a congested mode of planning before 1991 reforms. But after that, again from the 8th 5-year plan, we followed something called indicative planning. So this is where strong private property rights, efficient markets, judicial systems under indicative planning system. So the role of the government is to indicate but not to command. The state won't command, the government won't command anyone. It will just indicate, do this or do that. The government will never tell you that. The government will simply create the environment where everybody can work. So it indicate and provide directions to the market for their functioning. In such a system, market and state, like private sector and public sector, they both complement each other. Private sector is the enemy of the government here, but here private sector is the friend of the government. So there is a difference. That is called imperative and this is called indicative. So France was actually the first country to try this indicative planning. Even France was one of the important countries which followed the 6 5-year plans also. Sorry, 6-year plans. We followed 5-year plans that we adopted from Soviet Union. France followed 6-year plans. And France was the first country which followed this indicative planning, and we adopted this type of planning in India also. So India adopted this indicative planning, as I told you, from the 8th 5-year plan onwards, when it abandoned the imperative planning because of its failure during the LPG reforms. So this is about indicative versus imperative planning. Even though that this is a difficult topic, again we are going to talk about this topic as part of the 5-year plans. You no need to worry anything. From this, you have already got the awareness of what exactly an imperative planning and what exactly meant by indicative planning, and this will come again and again and again, so you no need to worry. So the next part is what type of planning actually we followed in India. In the earlier structure part itself, I told you short term, medium term, long term planning. So in India, the long term planning we actually called as perspective planning. Perspective plan in the sense any plan which we do for 15 to 20 years. A long term plan is generally called as perspective plan. Here they have written like 10 years. But in India, we do the perspective planning for 15 to 20 years. Recently, the NITI Aayog also released some document like how the planning would be for the next 15 years. That is nothing but perspective plan. So it is considered as a long-term plan which is more than 10 years. It might be 15 or it might be 20. Generally, this is also called as strategic planning. And second one is called medium-term plans. In India, we implemented this medium-term planning concept with 5-year plans. So you know about 5-year plans. In 1951, we started the 5-year plans in India. We continued these 5-year plans till 2017. Even though the 12th 5-year plan was discontinued in the middle, but more or less we had implemented 12 5-year plans in India. That is nothing but medium-term plan. It is also called as tactical plan. The very medium-term plan in France, they implemented as 6-year plans. Even in India, the Janata government has implemented these 6-year plans for 2 years. But after that, we took it away. So we introduced again these 5-year plans during the Indira Gandhi regime. So from 1951 till 2017, we had implemented this 5-year plan. Short-term plan in the sense budget that we actually pass every year in the parliament and as well as in the assemblies. So budget is nothing but revenue, expenditure, everything, all the details we give for 1 year. That is what it is all about. Planning concerns the plans for a time period of 1 year. It is nothing but budget, which is also called as operational planning. So in the exam, what exactly you should follow or what exactly you can expect is, first they'll ask you what is perspective plan and what is strategic plan, what is 5-year plan, what is tactical plan, what is operational plan, what is budget, and somewhat deeper parts of this subject also. So that deeper parts we will see in the concerned chapters. So if you look at the old previous question when it comes to this particular planning or types of planning, so this was the question. You look at here, till 1991, Indian plans were based upon indicative planning. So this is a wrong statement, right? Till 1991, we followed imperative planning. So this is a wrong statement. After 1991, Indian plans got based upon directive planning. I told you that is indicative planning. That is not directive planning. This is also wrong. So which of the following statements are correct? Both are wrong, no? So neither one nor two. So D is the option for this question. So if you know the basic concepts, it is easy to answer these questions. Likewise, we will also see one mains question. Planning has had an immense impact on economic development of India and should continue to play a key role in economic decision making in the country. Analyze. Here keywords are very important. What exactly analyze means? Analyze means the question is expecting us to write by making the question into different components, and giving our own point of view by combining these components as a whole in the summary. So that is what the analyze means. And if you look at the question, generally structure for the question is very important. Generally we analyze the structure with 3 keywords, that is intro, body and conclusion. So in the introduction, what the question is expecting or what the question is demanding us to write. So the question is expecting that what is the key role of planning when comes to the economic development. So to do the economic development, how planning plays a key role. So that should be part of your introduction. And in the body part, what you should write, what are the different 5-year plans in India that we implemented to industrialize in India. So to bring the industrialization in India, how the 5-year plans be utilized, and to develop different other sectors in India, how this planning actually helped us. So what are the advantages or what are the positives we got in the planning, and at the same time what are the issues or limitations in the planning. And at the end they are asking you what is your opinion, your relevant opinion when comes to this impact of the planning. Should it be continued to play a key role in the economic decision, or it should be taken away? So definitely its role is important. So in that conclusion, how the planning is again important, how it is important, you must conclude by taking all the components which you have written. So this is intro, body and conclusion. That is how you have to form the structure. By keeping this structure in the mind, you have to answer the question. So first, for any question, finding out the structure is very important. So content, more than the content, structure is more important. Length of the answer is not important. Structure and content in the answer is more important for the questions. Thank you. This is the end of types of planning. We will again meet in the next topic.